Tesco this week became the first major retailer to say they'll pay the so-called tampon tax on behalf of women. The move will reduce the cost of sanitary products by about 5%, but campaigners say that doesn't go far enough. In Aberdeen, a trial started last month offering women free access to the products. So should Scotland lead the way and supply free sanitary protection to every woman? Let's talk about that now with Labour MSP Monica Lennon, who's with me in the studio. Morning, Monica.
Good morning, Stephen.
Also with me on this is the Chief Executive of the Community Food Initiatives in the North East, Dave Simmers. Good morning, Dave.
Morning.
In Aberdeen this morning, and from Dundee joining me on this morning is Shona Gauntlet. Shona, thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for joining me.
Hi.
You've had first-hand experience of what people call period poverty when your son was born. Tell me what happened, Shona.
After I had him, there was obviously a big recovery time, but because I kind of had him in the middle of the month, of course, all of our bills and stuff were paid, and, I didn't realise how long I was going to bleed for, so I had to rely on friends and family to provide me with sanitary towels and maternity pads.
It shouldn't be embarrassing in the least, but how difficult was that process of turning to your nearest and dearest for help with something that is so personal?
Well, I didn't like having to ask. Like I say, we had quite a few expenses on top of what we had already had. So it was really embarrassing, and it was embarrassing. I had to rely on them to get them for me because I actually physically could not get out of the house because I was in that much pain.
When you left the hospital, were they supportive about this in terms of what they gave you to take home with?
No. I had my midwife effectively tell me what was going to happen. She came to visit every day, but, there wasn't really any information in the lead up to the birth exactly what was going to happen, because although I was fine when I left the hospital, it was a few days later that this problem presented itself as I got an infection and then started to hemorrhage.
What do you think about the suggestion that this most basic thing, sanitary protection for women, should be free and available to all women here in Scotland?
I think it can only be a good thing, and it will also reduce the risk of people having to have their dignity stolen from them.
And having to turn to friends and family.
Yeah.
The way that you had to do. How's your wee boy now?
He's perfectly fine.
He's good. That's great. Shona, stay with me. Monica Lennon, Labour MSP, with me in the studio. How big a problem is period poverty, Monica?
Well, we know it is a big problem, Stephen. We know this because of people like Shona who are telling us their stories. We know from speaking to people who volunteer in food banks, who often want to provide people with sanitary products but don't have the donations in stock to do so. And we've heard over the last year that I've been involved with this campaign of young people missing school. So it's one of those issues that people haven't been encouraged to talk about, and it's really brave of Shona to come on air and talk about it today. But the more people talk about it, the more we realise the extent of it.
That's part of the problem, is the embarrassment that should not exist around any of this, but people do feel it exists. Can we start to tackle that in schools with how we deal with girls on this subject? What more can we do you think?
I think there's a lot more we can do, and it's not just about tackling the conversation with girls. I think it's with boys, it's with everyone. I spoke to one director of education recently who was, I think, trying to reassure me they're doing some good work on this, but discreetly with the girls. And I wondered, well, why with the girls? Why are we separating the class in that way? I think education is part of it, but I think what is key is having sanitary products available in school toilets, and right now that's not the case everywhere.
So there's two arguments to this, Monica, isn't it? There's the tax argument that's subject to VAT at the moment, and that's something the government has said they're reviewing. But there is the bigger question of whether they should just all be made available free to all women in Scotland to reduce any stigma or embarrassment that might surround this. How do we make that happen?
Well, we're making it happen already. There's been great progress. When I raised the issue in the Scottish Parliament last year, It was kind of untested territory, and there's been lots of questions, and rightly so. But we've reached a point very recently where the Scottish Government itself has taken action. You've mentioned the pilot scheme in Aberdeen. So the government recognises there's a problem, and the government recognises there's a role here for government to take the lead. We know that solutions are possible. The example that I refer to is my local college, South Lanarkshire College in East Kilbride. When I met them last year and discussed what the issue perhaps means for their campus, their college, their students, they agreed that people come to college with financial worries and other issues, and they've just made it happen. They've changed all their dispensers over to free dispensers, and also keep extra supplies in the student association, so people need to drop in and take some extra. You know, they're not counting what people are taking. There are no questions asked.
Somebody's got to pay for that, though. So where should the funding for that come from?
Well, in a couple of weeks' time, I'll be launching a Members' Bill consultation. And I think what that will do, that will allow a national conversation about what exactly is the right approach for Scotland to take. In the document, there will be lots of projections and estimates. I think what we're still trying to do, first of all, is establish the principle. So Shona is a very rare example of someone speaking out and speaking about their experience. It's very difficult for people to do that. I'm hoping through the consultation we'll capture people's lived experience, whether they're working alongside women and girls, or it's people who have the experience themselves. People have got lots of different ideas about how this could be implemented, and also, you know, I don't think we can deny that there's a cost involved, but it's really about, is this the right thing to do?
Well, what about the companies that make all the money out of this? The manufacturers, Monica, any word from them on this?
Well, again, they have a big role to play. It's a multi-million pounds industry. They make a healthy profit from women's menstruation needs. So some do take their corporate social responsibility quite seriously, and they provide education packs and free samples and the like. But I think there's more that they can do, and I think that's something we can explore again with the consultation.
That's a conversation to be had, isn't it? Right, you mentioned this pilot scheme that's been running in Aberdeen. Let's find out what's been going on there. Dave Simmers is Chief Executive of Community Food Initiatives in the North East. Dave, what have you been doing in Aberdeen?
Well, for some years now, CFINE, Community Food Initiative of the North East, is the lead partner in a 61 partner strong food poverty action Aberdeen. And we have been very conscious of the challenges that sanitary products present for people in poverty. So we've been aware of it for some time. Now, all credit to Ms Lennon and to the Scottish Government and to Shona for speaking out there. And just by the way, we've a number of women now who are prepared to come forward and speak to the media, because I think a very important part of this pilot is to raise awareness of the issue and put it forward as a health and well-being issue, which nobody should be anxious or ashamed or worried about. What we're doing, and Scottish Government is funding us to run a 6-month pilot. We've got 16 partners involved. I'm speaking to education next week about 3 academies participating. FE College in Aberdeen's involved, plus a number of other community-involved organisations. And over the pilot, at least 1,000 people who use sanitary products, we intend will have access to the product, and throughout there's quite a rigorous evaluation framework we've put in place so that we can produce the experience and the evidence from the pilot and forward it to Scottish Government.
Dave, for the families that you help on low incomes, how significant a cost is sanitary products for them?
Well, one of the important things about, we refer to period poverty, although we've started referring to the pilot as access to free sanitary products. But one of the issues about period poverty, it's another cost in the context of poverty. You have fuel poverty, food poverty, period poverty. It all comes back to poverty, not in having enough money to cover the expenses that are there. And I would emphasise personally that sanitary products are concerned with a health and well-being issue. And arguably, it's a responsibility of the taxpayer.
David, tell me what you find when you speak to the families that come to you. Are women putting that, their sanitary needs, are they putting that behind feeding their children and all the other reasons that they come to you for help and support?
Aye, absolutely. I mean, women, and this is anecdotal, what we hope through the pilot is we can get this recorded in a more coordinated fashion, but women are describing choices of eating or heating, not missing a meal so the children can get fed, and then at that time in the month, there is the tension between making sure everybody's fed and warm and clothed and buying product. Sometimes product doesn't happen, with the potential health and hygiene repercussions.
What's been the reaction from women to the scheme that you've been running in Aberdeen?
Women are describing choices of eating or heating, not missing a meal so the children can get fed, and then at that time in the month, there is the tension between making sure everybody's fed and warm and clothed and buying product. Sometimes product doesn't happen, with the potential health and hygiene repercussions.
What's been the reaction from women to the scheme that you've been running in Aberdeen?
Oh, so far unanimously and very, very positively supportive.
Monica Lennon with me in the studio here. It's shocking in Scotland in 2017 that there are still women struggling to cope with this.
Yeah, and it's hugely upsetting, and I'm really grateful to Dave for the role that he's playing. It is so important that people get sanitary products now, but my frustration is that, you know, out with Aberdeen, out with that pilot scheme, there's people in every community who are struggling, and we know that through austerity and the gender pay gap, which persists, we've seen figures that have come out today that 2/3 of people who are earning below the living wage in Scotland are women, and this is an extra burden that women have to bear. So it's shocking and upsetting that it's happening, but what is encouraging is solutions are there. We just have to have the will to do it.
It's also been a hidden problem as well, though, Monica. It's part of the reason that we're talking about it with you today and with Dave and with Shona as well, because it has been something. It's not just a problem now. This has been going on for a while, but it's been a hidden problem until this point.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to raise awareness through having these discussions through the pilot scheme and by giving women a voice. We've seen lots of blogs on social media. I had a roundtable event in the Scottish Parliament and lots of young people attended, lots of students, people who are involved in their own communities or university clubs. So it's about, I think, in a way, letting women know it's okay to have this conversation. When I had a debate in Parliament last year, which was a cross-party debate, that had been the first time that menstruation and sanitary products had been discussed in the Scottish Parliament. I think there was a reference to tampons in 2004 in the context of litter on beaches, nothing to do with health and well-being. So I'm glad that Dave recognises the importance of this to health and well-being.
We've got a statement here from Equality Secretary Angela Constance, Scottish Government. She says it's unacceptable that any woman or girl in Scotland should be unable to access sanitary products. That is why, as part of our wider aims to eradicate poverty from our country, we're exploring how to make products freely available to low-income groups. The pilot in Aberdeen is a first step to help us understand the barriers women and girls face and to help us develop a sensitive and dignified solution to making these products accessible to those who need them. For you, is the answer, though, for them to be available free to all women, so there's no argument to be had about who is on low income?
Well, the consultation document that I'm about to publish will consult on that basis. How do we get a system that's right for everyone? I do have some concerns around a means-tested approach, because as we've heard in Parliament and from other speakers, that it's not always about access to money. We know from speaking to Women's Aid in East Kilbride, where I am an MSP, they now make products free for all the women who come to their offices and who are living in their refuges, because sometimes it's about domestic abuse and about control. And these are conversations that are very, very difficult to have. How do you test someone's means on that? And again, going back to schools where young people, girls who could be as young as 9, who don't have their own income anyway, but have to be in school between the hours of 9 and 3. If you're in school and there's no dispenser, what a rigmarole to put your hand up to the teacher and then have to go to the school office to ask someone a member of staff for sanitary products. So there's an issue there about dignity, and that's something that I'm going to explore in this consultation.
It may not have been mentioned in the Scottish Parliament until this point, but are you hopeful that there'll be cross-party agreement on this, that the Scottish Parliament will be able to unite behind a better way forward on this moving forward?
I am. The only way that we can secure a system in Scotland is through cross-party support. I'm very encouraged so far. Dave's calling in from Aberdeen, Gillian Martin, SNP MSP in that area, has been very vocal, and we had a cross-party members debate. People from all parties have joined in, and on the back of that I set up a cross-party group on women's health, which looks at a much wider agenda, but has been anyway, but have to be in school between the hours of 9 and 3. If you're in school and there's no dispenser, what a rigmarole to put your hand up to the teacher and then have to go to the school office to ask someone, a member of staff, for sanitary products. So there's an issue there about dignity, and that's something that I'm going to explore in this consultation.
It may not have been mentioned in the Scottish Parliament until this point, but are you hopeful that there'll be cross-party agreement on this, that the Scottish Parliament will be able to unite behind a better way forward on this moving forward?
I am. The only way that we can secure a system in Scotland is through cross-party support. I'm very encouraged so far. Dave's calling in from Aberdeen, Gillian Martin, SNP MSP in that area, has been very vocal, and we had a cross-party members debate. People from all parties have joined in, and on the back of that I set up a cross-party group on women's health, which looks at a much wider agenda, but has been sort of triggered by this. And so far, I think, well, all MSPs recognise there's a problem. We will have to have a debate about the solution, but so far it's been very consensual.
Good to hear. Monica Lennon, Labour MSP, thanks for your time this morning and coming in. Dave Simmers from Aberdeen, Chief Executive of Community Food Initiatives, and most importantly, Shona Gauntlet, who shared her experience. Not an easy thing to do, from Dundee this morning. Thank you all for your time. 11:30, BBC Radio Scotland on a Thursday. Zoe's got your